Howdys and salutations, y'all! How are you doing? Hope it's been a good Monday so far. I've been having a good time. I mean, you know, it's been a Monday. Mondays are Mondays. Got work done. That's what needed to happen. Let's see. Sorry, I'm just checking up on a handful of other things real quick. Twitch things, but I just gotta make sure it all good. Cool. Had to make sure that I was actually in fact live. You never know. OBS had some updates, and I just want to double check everything worked out still. Excellent, glad to see it did. Also, wow, the Spotify music is really loud. I'm gonna turn that down just a hair. I hope that's okay. Because, you know, as much as I like the music, I also hope it isn't drowning me out. I hate it when I'm watching something and I can't hear what they say. So, to pick up where we left off, and truthfully, I've been all weekend and all day at work, I have been itching to get back into this, but I was like, no doing it without streaming. And unfortunately, I just never had enough continuous time to do that anyway, which is a right shame. Okay. So where we left off, we were blocking in value. Now, I'm going to have to sort of re-situate myself in my brain to make sure that I'm in the right mindset for where the darks and lights are. Because truthfully, some of the dark seems too dark. And like, not that I want the bottom part to be super flat, but like I kind of do. Like, it's not the important detail, and this area, like, really... It may be that my black in general is too dark, but no, I think it's fitting for these and these. Because you want areas of high contrast to draw attention to this cool area of high detail, and all of the neat stuff happening. I don't want an area of high contrast to draw attention to random area. Nothing happening here, just some fabric. So I'm going to need to think this through a little. Because on the one hand, you know, in the literal sense, yeah, like this and that, pretty similar. Like, yes, obviously, both dark. And if I were just throwing a gradient on it, which is literally what I did with this image in any case, yeah, I bet they'd be about the same. Like, we can even test this. Let's, right, 5, okay. Just do some scribbles. And then we can grab the other one. Down here. And some additional scribbles. Wrong pen. And like, there is a marginal difference. But, ooh, is it marginal? I don't even know if it shows up on stream at all. I'm not... It, like, barely... Like, hold on, what are we talking? We're talking, like, OB. And then back up in this one, we're talking... Okay, so that one's OB. And if I were to grab this part of the belt... Is it still... Yeah, maybe they are basically just the same. Yeah, okay. So yeah, no, in the literal sense, yeah, it's that dark. But I have to think about the palette we've got. We've got 5 colors, and most of them are in the lighter range. Because that's where I want the detail, that's where I want the focus. But what that also means is that actually in this dark range, there's a pretty big difference between my 2 darkest tones up here. These two. Let's see, I should undo all of the nonsense I've just done there. And so the thing to think about really is, do we actually want this level of contrast? And we may smooth it out in the final edit, but, oh boy. It's tough, I'm genuinely not sure. Like, maybe I want this all to be the flat gray with just a few accent highlights picked out in the medium gray. or the middlemost. It would be medium, wouldn't it? And then obviously some highlights over here to the far right. But like, I don't know. Honest to goodness, I'm not sure. So we can experiment with it. Part of the joy of this. And then we'll see how much we do on the fabric. This is where a lot of the fabric definition will be coming in. But even then, I still want to make sure that our detail is focused elsewhere. We're still just blocking in values right now. As much as I got into a lot of detail up here, it's because that area had enough contrast to actually be in different like value sections. Down here, it's just the contrast isn't that important. I don't even need to do that. Just grab it and then experiment. Is this now drawing the eye more how I want it to? Not really, because we haven't done the whole top. But it's got around the right degree of eye draw that I want. I don't want it to be catching so much. On the flip side, that would lose us some good high contrast against the on the overall, like if you're just looking at a thumbnail. Like having that really dark down there would be good, but I don't think it's what I really want. I mean, we'll revisit it. It's definitely we will absolutely revisit it type deal. So, hold on, I'm getting notifications on my telephone. I need to respond to this text real quick. Give me just a moment. Apologies for the interruption. Real life does its things. We'll see on responses. But yeah, I'm gonna just. I guess I can talk recap. I can't necessarily focus on the art while I do this, but I can do some chitter chat. I'm now officially in something of an accidental race with myself. I have picked up Elden Ring again recently because we're nearly on the 1-year anniversary, and like, so help me, I still haven't finished it at all. But whoop! I dropped my pen. But the area I've just gotten to is I've just cleared most of the Halig tree, which means that I'm now in a race to see if I finish drawing Malenia or actually beat her first. And it's pretty neck and neck, I'm gonna be honest, because that fight looks terrifying. And not just because, you know, Dark Souls fight, really tough Dark Souls fight, but like, specifically, she reminds me of previous bosses that in particular were my weakness. Like, even when other people fared okay against them, I did very poorly. The most obvious example being Sister Fried, or Frida, depending on who you ask, in the game and too. Yeah, I beat Calamite in 4 tries. I never solo beat Frida. I had to summon help. Heck, I think I beat Soul of Cinder first try. And, or not Calamite, what the heck am I talking about? I did beat Calamite, like, second try because I was a tank build. Yeah, Cinder first try, Midier 4 tries, Gale 3, Nameless King 2. Like, I mean, to be fair, I did summon to help people a little bit before, but I did that with Frida, too. I summoned, like, 20 times to help people with Frida. And I still couldn't even, like, I could not consistently get to Phase 2. And Malenia looks like Frida, but much harder. So I'm a little scared, not gonna lie. But yeah, we'll be seeing how that goes. I still need to finish Millicent's quest first. She's far enough along that she's with me at the Halig tree, but there's one final stage. So yeah, You know, I was thinking it'd be fun to draw Millicent, but there are rather striking design similarities. Um, for many reasons. But I think it might be a little redundant, unless, of course, we were doing it as a way to draw like actual new poses, because that is one thing we're not. We're learning a lot of stuff with this, and don't get me wrong, I think I'm going to be happy with the results. I'm excited with how it's going, and it's absolutely been great. However, there's still things that I kept as constants so that I could focus on the stuff we're learning now with value and line work and such. And the stuff I kept as constants was more along the lines of actually coming up with the drawing. Because, obviously there's still going to be interpretation and such. It feels like drawing from reference. But we're not drawing, we're not taking an interesting pose and applying it and actually trying to come up with how the character would look in that pose. It'll be interesting. Let's see. Sorry, still working on this. But in the meantime, I keep finding new shows, and I keep looking for new shows that are good. Looks like Velma isn't. I mean, look, maybe it's someone else's sense of humor, and I don't know. I'm all for diversity wins, but that one feels like a diversity loss because they don't even treat there's still stereotypes and terrible. Stinking what? I don't know. It looks really bad and really crass, and I don't understand that. Obviously, that humor works for some people, but I'm tired of it being called mature or adult humor. Actually, maybe it is fitting because children were far more responsible in their humor than any of this garbage. I don't know. But aside from that, I've been trying to find good anime. Iruma is still really fun. That's a great one. I know it's mainstream and popular, but whatever, it's good. Genuinely. I tried Aran-san from last season or the season before. It was pretty cute. It was better than I expected. Still, not the most unique thing in the world, but well done, well executed. Probably not going in my top 10 or anything like that. Unlike stinking Bocchi the Rock, which has been absolutely grand. I watched it because of the memes. I was like, hey, there's funny pictures. I bet we could get some good reaction GIFs or whatever. But it's just straight up a good show, like a really good show. I've been shocked. Been having a great time with that one. Less great with desperately trying to find an isekai that does something interesting. Because there's plenty of good ones out there. Being an isekai isn't inherently bad. But so many of them, it feels, use it as an excuse to not do anything good. Or interesting. Or, with effort. Granted, I had been warned that Cell Phone Into Another World was bad. But it was really bad. It wasn't as bad as Master of Ragnarok, which was hot garbage. But I will give credit to Master of Ragnarok for at least being so uniquely and incredibly horrible that it was entertaining to riff on with friends. Cell Phone is just bland. Inconsistent, and the protagonist is kind of garbage. Not as garbage as some others, but pretty garbage. I don't know. On the one hand, they're talking that there's magical verification that he's the most pure person ever, but on the other hand, he nearly let his party die so that he could get creepy views of them. It was just a word. He's terrible. I hate it. His only character trait besides boring is kind of a danger to his friends and allies. That's not cool. But yeah, Master of Ragnarok, we only watched one episode just as a joke, and the history major in me just died a little bit. Because, look, I'm not going to pretend I'm a master of history, or of Ragnarok for that matter, but I'm fairly sure that, A, they made it wildly unclear in the show if this is supposed to be Earth's past or another planet, because he talks about being in the past and the constellations are the same, but they call it Yggdrasil, and there is magic, but he can still talk with his friend. But it's so inconsistent. Maybe that gets explained better later. But if it is supposed to be past Earth, they screwed it up. Or they were really lazy with their other world, because it's just literally Babylon, complete with ziggurat, in exactly the same location. But then they just chucked like a medieval-ish looking castle with a Greek temple on the top of it. Like, post-Bronze Age collapse Greek and pre-Bronze Age collapse Babylon, and like, it looks so bad. They didn't try to make it work at all. They just like chucked them together. Like, I understand that building a world environment is difficult, and a lot of stuff ends up generic Gothic, but like, come on. Also, as people correctly pointed out in the comments, it cites two people as the creators of the Phalanx, and they're both very wrong. Very wrong. Painfully wrong. One of them is Oda, which is not correct. Like, he may have used them, I haven't fully researched, but he did not come up with the concept or, like, perfect it. The other is Alexander the Great, who also definitely didn't invent them. Part of the reason Macedon was a success was because he, like, tweaked the tried and true established standard that were phalanxes, with considerably longer Macedonian spears and various other tools and, like, tactics. But, like, you know, Peloponnesian War had phalanxes. At least 100 years before Alexander, and they were using them well before that. Granted, they weren't using them in stinking Babylon. So, I don't know. That show... honestly, I'm not even actually mad. It's so terrible, it's funny. And I appreciate they clearly had someone who did research. Because that someone left, like, a little end card on the return from a commercial break that had, like, several textbook paragraphs worth of history on the, Phalanx, which was all correct, minus the citing Alexander as the origin of it. But they only showed it for 1 second, and like you can't show people a lot of paragraph of text for 1 second. They're not going to pause and read it unless they're already a history nerd like me. And if they are, they're already mad enough at you for screwing the show up this bad that they're not going to care that you did that. So, like, I don't know. Master of Ragnarok was really awful. Really comically bad. Cell Phone was not comically bad. It was just bad. Like, just awful. I'm watching another one that was vaguely interesting, and I'll respect it as being well written, although look, I'm not a dub snob or a sub snob. I mostly watch dubs because I like to multitask. Nothing wrong with either, I'm happy with both. I'll admit the dub on this one's a little off-putting. Not necessarily because of the voice actress, you cast a woman to do a young child's voice because it's oftentimes they have more skill at replicating that, like, frequency range. I don't know. There's experts who know more and who can explain more. But it's not the best one. They did a fairly, like, okay job of it. It's fine once you get into the show, but, like, it was a little weak. But then some of the lines, you can tell they were really kind of stretches to make it fit the actual writing of the dub to fit with the mouth movements was a little jarring at times. It was like, okay. What the heck was it? It was like most powerful exorcist, like, reincarnates himself into another world or something. I don't stinking know. Like, it had some interesting characters, but the other thing that honestly is the reason that I'm sort of steering clear, I did the 3-episode test, I gave it a fair shake, and I won't be returning, is because, well, two things. One, I don't enjoy shows that start out lighthearted and then become grimdark, because they get me invested, and then I'm invested in watching a show that makes me sad and I don't enjoy. I did it with Ruby, I did it with a couple of webcomics, and I don't get catharsis from the bad parts even when they're resolved. It basically just feels like I got hoodwinked into watching something that I'm having not fun watching, and I emerge from more tired than when I started. Like, if you want... There's lots of people who love grimdark shows. By all means, I love it. And I understand that you want to set the setting to see how far something falls. You need the contrast. But, like, if you don't know that it's going that direction, it's not fun to find yourself in one. And this one, toward the end of episode 3, started to show its true colors as A, being a lot more grim like that, and B, the protagonist being a lot more horrible. Like, I understand, look, don't get me wrong, his motives are actually, well, they make sense, and the thought process makes sense. The writing itself as the story is good. I'll give them credit there, it's well done. Not the most original, but the way that they're handling this particular reincarnation is actually fairly original and has cool character motives. No denying that. Not even necessarily abusing the magic system the same way some would. Quite the opposite, in fact. But, like, the problem is that he's just kind of a, like, it feels like they want me to root for Darth Sidious. But, like, not actual Darth Sidious. Like, Darth Sidious back when he was still Plagueis, a student. It's like, yeah, no, very clever, run things from the shadows. But also, I don't want you to win. Like, I don't know how to say that other than I was rooting for him, underdog, makes sense, they had that established at the start. But now I'm like, oh, he is shamelessly planning to use people. And in fact has been doing so and has orchestrated events that put people in severe danger. And I'm like, okay. I don't necessarily agree that you're the good guy anymore. Stuff like that. Like, you know, honestly, it looks like it looks like it's actually a very good show if you're into the type of, like, slightly more grim, like, revenge-oriented stuff. I think it's well done. It's just not my cup of tea. It's very different from Stinking Cell Phone. Holy cow, that one's bad. Like, look, I ain't shaming you if you like it. Everyone's got their own things. This is not a criticism of anybody who enjoys it. I just really hate it. Actually, common theme that might be emerging. I don't like shows where you're supposed to root for the character who's a jerk for selfish reasons. I can understand being a jerk for unselfish reasons. Those are actually often really fascinating characters who are fun. Like the stubborn paladin who's, like, absolutely gets in people's way, but he has a reason that's, like, not the corrupt one that's, like, garbage, but, like, the one who's actually trying to help. Like, I love those characters. They're great. They have interesting conflict. They're usually well written. They're fun. I mean, they're usually somber and imposing, but that makes them fun to have the other characters interact with. But if you are a jerk for your own ends, and I'm supposed to celebrate you, and you don't get comeuppance, but you're in fact, like, praised for it, I don't like that show. I don't want to watch that. I don't know why anyone would want to watch that. That's like, why? I'll be honest, I got further into Cell Phone because I was just kind of letting it run on the background after a while. But, like, the worst comeuppance I have seen him get at all is being stuck in a stinking board game for too long. Like, not like magically in a board game, like he just got stuck playing too many rounds. And that's the worst comeuppance he gets. And, like, don't get me wrong, he's not the most evil guy in the world, but he's kind of, for someone who's supposed to be praised as the most pure of heart hero, grand savior, he's kind of none of that. At least Konosuba, for all its problems, understands that his protagonist has some interesting, well, I mean that in the sarcastic way, interesting and problematic character flaws. But, like, he usually gets his just desserts. Not, well, I suppose with the exception of the one infamous episode where he invited someone else over to the house and it was terrible, but most of them he gets his comeuppance. And that I like. That's what I want to see. I want to see if someone's behaving badly for bad reasons. In real life, they usually don't get their comeuppance, and it sucks. At least give us the catharsis in fantasy world. Why would I want a fantasy where jerks win? Like, what is the point of that? And not just win, but win triumphantly and are celebrated unironically. Like, no. Don't do that. Please. Interesting, because I'm tempted. I'm tempted to make a lot of the stuff over here actually the real light. I'm worried it might pop too much. But it'll tie in with the floof, the super highlight on the floof, which will actually be even more, and so it'll still have some contrast that brings it down. We can have a slight medium gray gradient and do some accents with that. We could save the super dark black for a few small sections. Like down here, probably ought to still have it. Make that pop a tiny bit. I don't care that much about it popping, but like... And then, I don't know, maybe the belt? Maybe the belt. This is one of those challenges where the two parts of my brain fight, and they're the parts that you have to actually do, which is literal copying, or not copying, but literally trying to capture exactly what you see, and less literal trying to interpret it in a way that best captures the effect of what I'm looking at. And that's, just part of art. That's an interesting challenge. That's for a lot of people, that's what gives art its interest, is that it's like that. And that you have to do that. And honestly, it's a lot of fun. But it is also undeniably a challenge, at least for someone like me. I'm going to do really small highlights in the maximum light. It's amazing how much darker this white looks over here. All light and dark is within context. Ain't that the truth? I'm not talking about being morally gray as a character either. I'm being like literal values. Not moral values. This terminology gets a little complicated, doesn't it? Actually, I really do want this to kind of be up along what would be the edge of this. There we go. Oh, I've realized once again. There we go. Now my motions will... Yep, that feels much better. I need to just set like a to-do list for the start of every stream that is like, make sure your tablet's in the right settings. But yeah, I'll do like a loose one in here. Problem with the fabric is like, I know I'm not going to want sharp edges on it at the end. I'm going to want to like really smooth it out. So what I'm trying to figure out how to do is, do I want to either like actually try to make this to where it would work completely, just perfectly reasonably as a cell shady type where there's no gradient and I get creative with the borders? Or do I want to do this in the way where I just leave good blocks that would be easy to blur later? And the answer is, I don't know. Isn't that frequently the answer when it comes to this sort of thing? For me, anyway. Oop, that's not the one I thought I clicked. There we go. There we go. This is a raster layer, right? Good. Yeah, good. This should definitely be a raster layer. Okay. Now that I zoom in, I've got a much better idea of where I want. I am gonna gradient this a little bit. And we can hold on. Let me make sure I've got the right scope of area in here so I don't do a lot of detailing and then it's totally off. Cool. We're gonna get a little creative with this. Even go like to slightly finer point, just so I can get a little more wobble in here. The other thing that's throwing me off is when I was doing my base colors, I clearly tried to just kind of rough this stuff in, and so let's do that. That way I can sort of visually see this all as one area. This will be our middle gray. And yeah, that's not great. Should have done rough big lines of where I wanted them to be first. Well. Yeah, let's get that cleaned up real quick. I'm sure we'll unclean it up here in just a second, but for the time being, let's see. Problem is that I'm trying to capture the sort of fuzzy, but I'm not doing a particularly clever job of it. And part of that is because I'm trying to just do random wiggle lines the way I would do for grass, except like not even doing it with the thought that I would do it for grass. Well, if I were doing grass, you kind of do. And you get more interesting grass than if you were just doing like this. Although as long as you get like good variance with your little grass, then you can get some interesting stuff. Although it still ends up having like patterns and bumps that aren't really believable. But you know, it's generally, and like that's the worst. But generally having like individual lines helps you get a little more interesting variance. However, that's not, I've just been doing this vertically like it's grass and it looks really stupid. So let's try not that. Just put this all away, shall we? And honestly, I'm resetting this one too. Like, yeah, the mass was kind of in the right place, but it was going to cause confusion later. Alright, now to get rid of all of the little fuzz that we've drawn over here. We'll probably get to see more of that later. We'll see if that's something we want to do on this layer or not. Most likely, I'm going to want to, if I'm being honest. Part of the problem with this one is it almost feels like the edge ought to just use the pencil. Actually, yeah, I should just use the pencil for this. We're going to have to fill it with the right color at the end, though, because we are trying to block in values, not like... Yeah, not get these gradients that the pencil kind of inherently does. Okay, so the point is that that should be coming down as a sort of like there's there and there's there. Gotta learn that that doesn't work. Then if we're doing the pencil like this, what we really want is to sort of have the continuous, then have it kind of come up with the crease, then kind of go down on this side a little bit. Eventually following the edge. Not necessarily with total precision, mind. And then we've got the interior that does a similar deal, except it really follows along, sort of colors out its own thing here. Okay. Now that we've got that sort of random noise going, I'm going to try solidly blocking it in. Wrong gray for this area. But while still trying to keep kind of the little random noise that the pencil helped give it. At least to the extent that we can, you know. There we go. Is it great? No, but is it considerably better and still feels more like it oughta? Yes. Ought to just be doing quick strokes there. Man, it's amazing how quickly you can get out of practice over just like a weekend. Like, I even did sketching this weekend, but it wasn't digital, and like I can feel myself having to warm back up again, which is crazy. It'll be a little more consistent there because it's following the edge of the fabric as opposed to the edge of wherever the fuzz and weird small wrinkles happen to take it. That's potentially going to overflow. No? Okay, cool. We'll obviously have to do a little more cleanup with that, but broadly speaking, we can get the gist going over here, get some interesting texture, hopefully without too much contrast to draw the eye. But we'll see. Trying to think of other good stuff that I could watch. I mean, obviously, like right now, I'm trying to do art and then all the daily life stuff, and then also the art that we do for streaming, and playing Elden Ring, which I'm having a great time with. No, I do not. But thank you for asking, Clip Studio Paint. If I want to cut the entire layer, I, in fact, didn't. But yeah, I'm trying to think, like, it. I mean, obviously, Elden Ring's gonna eat a lot of time. I just officially passed 200 hours on it. I've been like hovering like in the 190s, slowly creeping up on it for a while, and then you take a long break because life happens and the game is just too big. That seems like the number one complaint I've seen leveled against it is like it's too big. There's too much, which is a crazy problem for a game to have. But there is. I think the problem is like it draws the audience of people who have jobs. And it's like, oh, yeah, about that. I don't have several hundred hours to dedicate to this game in any reasonable amount of time. Like, I'm not going to have it finished by the anniversary. Of that, I'm confident. No small degree, just because, like, my motivation to go to Farm Azula is so low. It's amazing. It's amazing how different areas in that same game can feel. Like, not even like, obviously there's, game mechanics and enemies and stuff, but like, the level design speaks such volumes in some of those. And it's really fascinating. I feel like this needs like another little wobble patch up there to really imply this curve happening. There we go. That's kind of interesting. These little bits may end up being too much, but I like the texture we got with this. And I do think that the light of this is going to get washed out by the high contrast of this collar when we do it. It's like, I may do some other medium gray highlights in here. I'm going to try not to do anything too crazy with it. It's tempting. It's really tempting. Like for this bit, shouldn't all this be like extra dark? What's happening with? Oh, interesting. I think I may have missed a line. I'm undercloak pencil. Y'all remember our number? It's 686868. It's good gray. But there is in fact, a second bit of cloth that comes down here and goes through the loop. There we go. That'll do. Again, I ain't looking to get that precise. But it does also mean that that second bit of cloth needs to be part of the dark zone. Wrong color. I was wondering why my line work was vanishing underneath it. Because it was the same color as the line work. That would be why. Okay. This also explains what this weird high contrasty bit was that I couldn't place. It was a mistake. Funny how that works out. I forgot that I just like fill bucketed the whole bottom area and didn't like clean it up. So we'll have to we'll have to do a lot of cleanup and all that jazz. Of course, of course. This ring might be black. Like we may actually I'm so hesitant to get the high contrast blacks down here. Like maybe it'll be balanced out by up here, but it's so high contrast. And I kind of want this lower area to not draw attention. Even having this as a middle gray feels so bold. Like bolded difference. Like, because I can do that black, and I can do this bit black. And like immediately, it really draws your eye down there. And I don't know that there's a way to solve that. I mean, there is one thing I can do. Okay, I can leave the little ring black. It still shouldn't draw attention, but it's small enough that I don't think it's going to be a major distraction. And we could consider like little small black highlights down here. But like I'm going to have to be real careful with it. In the same way that I'm going to have to be careful to not overdo it with these light highlights. Or else we're going to have issues. Anyway, I feel like I was talking something before I realized that mistake. And even like a couple minutes ago, I was like, I wonder what I was talking about. I've totally lost my train of thought. I've got no idea. It felt not that important, truthfully. But I felt passionately about whatever the heck it was, I guess. So, sorry for that. Once I see the VOD, as if I ever watch the VODs, nothing wrong with watching them. I don't like my own voice. I don't think anyone really loves their own voice. At least it takes a lot of practice to hear it, at least on a recording. Like, I don't mind hearing my own voice. But hearing it recorded? Bleh. We have that as high contrast, and then specifically this piece here has some potential. To really get kind of like a speckled light from the dust on it that leads up into more consistent light from the actual like light it's catching. I may clean that up, but you know, obviously the initial intent is to get just like weird wonky natural patterns and then decide if we want to clean them up or not. Probably going to want to at least a little bit because that feels like an awful lot going on down there. The contrast in these low value sections is really difficult because I don't want much contrast. And, you know, weirdly, it almost makes me wonder, and this would be, like, you'd have to be doing this intentionally from the start, you'd have to be kind of clever with it. It almost makes me wonder if when choosing a palette, you should actually give yourself more colors in the areas where you want less focus. Not more colors, but more values, like a bigger range. I mean, it would compress your actual focus areas. You'd have to want a style that looks very, like, kind of topo-mappy. Granted, I like topo maps. But if you wanted to draw attention to the contrast alone, and you didn't want to draw attention to, like, the slow transitions, you could almost give yourself 2 light shades and 5 darkish ones. and just let the shadows kind of blend together and do their thing while the light ones really pop. I don't think it's a good idea for this, partly because we're far enough in and I'm liking the results. Like, if we were far enough in, this far in, but I was like, I'm not sold on this, I'd probably still see it through to the end, trust the process and all that, but I would be willing to consider other stuff. But like, obviously it's not all perfect, but this is turning out really cool. It needs some tweaks down in this part, but like, when you look at it as a whole, that's striking, and I'm liking that. I'm just going to try to fuzz up the edges a little bit. Make it really look less intentional and more just like the random dust and light catching on various clothy things. And the funky folds. I think of what other interesting stuff there is I can go on and ramble about. Because we're sort of getting to the end. Well, not really. I'm sure we'll find more stuff as far as the art piece is going. But we're getting into some repetitive tasks where I'm not necessarily going to have so much to talk about there. I guess other shows I've been watching. Again, feel free to shout out recommendations. I'm trying to get away from YouTube because stuff like anime or even Twitch and other TV shows and everything are easier to pause and to feel done with than YouTube is. And so I'm trying to just find stuff that I can put down when I want to and not feel like my time is being vortexed away from me. And so I'm looking for new shows right now is my point. Let's see. I've talked about most of the new stuff I've been trying as far as anime is concerned. I guess I'm also still watching Fruits Basket. That one looks cute. And there's still plenty to consider there. But like, I'm still working on it. Like, it's fun, but it's like a longer form, slower paced show that's quite enjoyable. But as far as like lighthearted comedy stuff, I almost wonder, maybe I think this is what I was talking about. It's too soon to do a rewatch of it, but I quite enjoyed Sleepy Princess and the Demon Castle. Very much just like a silly comedy. Silly premise, but funny. And like, I found it enjoyable. It was just fun. I'm very sad that it's short. Also, basically one of the first anime I watched as far as like actually considering watching anime goes, as opposed to like, I ran into Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh as a kid, but I didn't really understand that, what anime was or the similarities and differences or tropes or anything like that. They kind of are doing their own thing. Obviously, they're very shonen-y, but they're doing their own thing. And then for a brief while, when Netflix had some weird stuff on it, I watched some of Sergeant Keroro, which I actually didn't really care much for. And I also watched some... It took me a long time to even track down what the heck it was, and I'm still not 100% certain, but I'm pretty sure that it was actually Macross and not Robotech, which is crazy. How? Did Netflix have that at some point? Like, how? I don't know. Anyway, it was cool, but it also got more grim at some points, and I've already stated my opinions on stuff like that. Like, I was invested, and it was interesting, but I was like, wow, they really went for it. But like, those were interesting, but it still wasn't like, I'm going to actively choose to watch anime. It was just, cool show I ran into. The first one I guess I really chose. Even then, it was more because friends wanted to talk about it. was, of course, JoJo, which is, frankly, increasingly too gruesome for me. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's always had its stuff, but I've been trying to catch up with part 6, and, like, holy cow, they leaned into the body horror. And I'm like, ooh. Not loving this. They also leaned into these stands being so convoluted that it stops feeling like, oh, they're being clever, and more starts feeling like, oh, stupid luck lined up so that they could happen to line up facing the right direction to trip a guy into a chair. Like, I don't know. I'm spending too much time on this weird cord, or this weird fold. I do like the idea of it having the contrast compared to some of the other stuff. I need to clean up where autofill and then auto refill on the darks failed, which is, you know, I can hardly hold a grudge. They do the bulk of the work quite well. Still saving me time after all. But yeah. Yeah, Sleepy Princess. It's too soon to rewatch Assassination Classroom. Which was truly a wonderful show. One of the best of any kind I've seen in my life. Let's see. Although I suppose that one does also potentially fall into the category of gets darker over time, but I feel like they make it pretty clear from the get-go. Like, they're like, yeah, you know where this is going. As opposed to some of the others where it's like, oh, it's just happy high school life, and then it slowly devolves into, oh, apocalypse murder. Like, cool. Didn't like, if I wanted to sign up for the apocalypse murder show, you know, I just signed up for that one, but I wasn't looking for this today. We'll try some dark highlights over here and see what we can pull off. I'm gonna do considerably less than the prompt over here would imply, but I'll do a little bit. That's not even remotely. I'm on the eraser. Okay. Just to give it like a little bit of form. But yeah, I quite enjoyed that one. I tend to enjoy silly, lighthearted nonsense shows, but like not suggestive ones. I don't enjoy that kind. I just like the nonsensey shows. Let's see. Or just like fun, like obviously there's still stuff that's just well written and fun that's worth enjoying. Like Spy Family's been great. I need to catch up on it. But I'm trying to only watch it with my brother right now. Maybe I need to not rethink that, but like figure out if that's like a one season thing or like, because it's also fun to rewatch with him, so I'd be happy to watch with him at any point. And then Bocchi the Rock, as much as I love it, I'm watching that one with friends too, so I can't get too far ahead on it. Tempting though it always is. Sitting in my continue watching queue. Oh, another great one that we quite enjoyed was The Way of the House Husband, or as my friends and I have been just calling it, Yakuza House Husband. Because, I mean, A, that's what it is, but also, I don't know, the show's just funny. It's just very funny. Likewise, not quite as good, but there was Yakuza Babysitter, which I think actually was the name of that show. That one was fun. Oh, maybe I need to add just like a little bit of pop down here to make this really shine, so to speak. Maybe same with the belt. Maybe we can do this as like a little bit of a side, like a shadow, but not like a full color in its own right. And I've been trying watching that new, what's it called, like Buddy Daddy's show or whatever, which obviously does not claim to be the same type of deal as those other two, but it's still been a little bit disappointing because the protagonists are in that, like, oh, I want to be rooting for you, but you're making choices that make it hard too. And I don't mean the assassin's part. I mean the, like, Child in Confidence. I've heard the next episode is really strong. So once the dub lands, I'm still giving it a solid shot. Okay, yeah, we'll do a little bit of these darker highlights just to give a little bit of volume down here without drawing too much attention. And I probably ought to chill out on the degree to which I've highlighted that one too, if I'm being honest. I do think it's reasonable to get like a little bit of stuff going in here. Just, to have that. We'll chill on that a little bit. We'll go for a little bit of... Oh, hold on. This is all fabric too, in the same shade. And, yeah, okay. That, there. Maybe that'll help with the direction of the art a little more. The angle that we actually want the focus to be going. Okay. But yeah, so, I'm going to keep giving that one a shot. I've realized that I'm watching a lot of, well, obviously a lot of anime right now. But, like, I don't know, it's been fun. It's, not been as awkward as I had feared, although it certainly has been at times. But, yeah, no, it's been fun. I wish that I could find as much, because honestly, the thing is that, obviously I like the lighthearted, silly stuff. I can't find that stinking at all in Western stuff. Like, the one place I can find it is like children's shows, like and I don't mean to demean that or anything, but like Phineas and Ferb has exactly the kind of like that degree of like obviously that's silly nonsense, but it's also not like brain dead boobah Teletubbies nonsense, I assume anyone who's encountered the boobahs knows what I mean. It's like if you made a TV show about Fall Guys, but you hired, like, actual Fall Guys who, can't make decisions or speak, to be every part of it. It's designed to be pretty colors to entertain children, but, like, it's very poor as far as children's shows go. Teletubbies and boobahs are by the same person. If that gives you a sense. Although at least Teletubbies had spoken, but anyway. Although I can't criticize that much, because I remember when I was younger, but not young enough to justify it, I had a guilty pleasure show that was... What was it called? It was like Bunny Town or something? And it was like a bunch of Muppet rabbits. And there was like the Disco Pirate Bunnies song. I'll be honest, it was a little inane, but it was, it was funny. I enjoyed it. So I can't criticize boobahs or anything else like that much, or else I'm getting to be a bit of a hypocrite myself. But like that's the point. Is all of that is heck? I'd watch. Well, okay, maybe not boobahs, but most of those I'd watch any day over like another stinking true crime drama, or another stinking dystopian novel, or like another stinking sci-fi, but it's gritty nightmare future because we don't have any stinking hope. What? Even Star Trek went that way. Not the whole point, but a huge draw of Star Trek for me was that it was a future with hope. Like, it's science fiction. There's still challenges. It's not like it's an unrealistic, impossible future. It is a plausible, reasonable future that is better than where we are today. And, like, I don't know. I don't know why anyone would want to make that one grimdark also. Like, there's so much angsty sadness shows out there for you. And dystopian sci-fi, which, don't get me wrong, absolutely have a place. Excellent social commentary, often poignant points, often really well done. Like, I'm not saying it's a bad genre. I'm just saying, why is it the stinking only genre? I get that the world has problems right now, but why would I want to imagine a world with more of them if it's not actually trying to, like, comment on ways to improve or avoid it, but it's just like, hey, wallow in the misery. Like, no. I don't want to do that. There's enough of that already. I have sufficient misery around to wallow in. I don't need you to supply additional misery. Like I don't like ending breaks in a worse mood than when I started them, because then what the heck was the point of the break? So why would I want to take a pause in my time to relax and watch something about how the world sucks? And, you know, I'm sure that there's always the infinite... People won't say it outright, but they'll always imply it, that, oh, anything that's, like, super positive is stupid and you're, like, a naive idiot. No! Good things... I can't believe I have to say this. Good things can happen. I'm not saying they're guaranteed to. That kind of stuff takes effort to make it happen. But it is, in fact, possible for good things to happen. No matter how dour the circumstances. So... like... I don't know, I'm just so tired of this, like, hopelessness that people have sunk into. And I get it, don't get me wrong, the world is absolutely kind of a mess right now. And there's problems that we're not going to be able to solve. There's people who are actively going to try to stop us from solving anything. But that doesn't mean you just say, screw it, and throw in the towel. So pardon my language. But, like, I'm fed up with this. I don't resent anyone for burning out, but I'm tired of people wallowing in burnout and, like, relishing it as a type of wisdom. As a type of, I'm above it all, I'm feeling apathetic, I don't have to deal with it. That makes me smarter than anyone who's bothering and getting all caught up in it. Like, yes, don't feed the trolls. Don't waste your fights in stupid places. If you're getting caught up in it like that, then you're stressing yourself out and you're not doing yourself any favors. But, like, there's places you can spend your time that actually help. There's things you can do that actually help. Don't just throw in the towel right away. And I'm sure many people are fine. You know, everyone has their own challenges. I'm not going to pretend that, like, you know, everything is all good and solvable and you should just buck up and be happy, you know. But I'm just saying, like, no matter where you're at, keep an eye out for the silver lining. Don't stop looking for it. Because sometimes there's more to it, and that stuff actually happens. Just tends to be a little slower. I'm definitely getting too much contrast going on this. Yeah. I gotta figure out the right balance here. Part of it could just be my grayscale, and I'm gonna have to make an executive choice on this somewhere, but... I really like the texture we ended up getting over here, even this one. Let me see if I can finish out that section looking decently, and then maybe we can rethink this swath with a little more thought. And even these, like, with a little more texture, would probably do them good. They don't just have to be stoic stripes. Break up those silhouettes a little bit. Still too high contrast, but at least it looks decent when your eye gets drawn there. And the same could be said for a lot of what's happening over here, truthfully. This is medium gray, right? Yep. There's an argument to be made that it should be the darker one, but I'll leave it for now. Because truthfully, even though in the original image it definitely blends more into the layer of, like, the cloak, I like it popping more. It's part of the mechanism, it's super cool. Right, we're going to finish out that bottom right section. Then probably go on break, reset the brain, and then have a go at the center fabric again. Because I'd like to, you know, I'm sure we'll keep tweaking it and messing it, because this is one of the most complicated parts of it. glancing at the fur rim as being the most complicated part of it. That or the hair. But like this is where, you know, this is going to be a complicated piece to work out. But I'd like to try to get the fabric sorted today, if I can. And oh, it's interesting that this even has like little highlighty specks on it. And I am going to try to just kind of scratch these shapes in a little bit. Like it still blocks. Like, I'm still trying to get like not gradients and such, but I think it's interesting. And this will give us a little more like vaguely fabric-y texture going on in here. I get the shadow landing on some wrinkles, doing some stuff. And that gives it just enough pop, really, without needing to do anything too crazy. Zip that out of the way. And like, yeah, I could add more. I could add a little more gradient here. I could add more darkness here. I may add some more darkness up in that inner rim up there. Since it's already kind of within a darker zone, it's not going to have as much draw as if it's surrounded by light. And I think it'll do some good. Gonna have high contrast here and with the cloak though, so we'll see. Although the cloak itself, final version, we'll definitely see, who knows. Yeah, we'll see. This may end up having too much dark over here, but yeah, that's the other thing. If we bring the entire cloak color scheme down darker, then I mean, it'll end up being maybe less of an eye draw. We just have an overall more darkly themed drawing. I'll think about that. Oh, yeah, I actually really like that for that. Just kind of the folds catching the light. Light still being pretty dark, honestly, because there ain't that much of it getting down here, but... Yeah. Okay, cool. That said, I do think, on the flip side, in terms of the world of contrast, I think this ought to be dark too. Like, yeah, I realize it's part of the skin, but it's definitely darker than the rest of the skin until we're getting way back up here. And it's clearly not the focal point of the drawing, so... I guess that is the color that is. I guess, yeah, I mean, we can lean back into having more black down here. I just don't want to overwhelm things. Even knowing that a lot more of the bottom is ultimately going to be cut off, which is kind of a shame about what happens over here. Maybe I may have to sneakily move all of those textures up a little bit. Just because I like how they turned out. Don't mind me, nothing happened. Nothing at all. There we go. See, nothing happened. Nothing suspect there whatsoever. We come back into the do we make this part darker? Because it's so much darker is the problem. And we can make all of this part really dark, then it becomes something of a focal point. And that's kind of the opposite of what I want to do with it, truthfully. Don't want it to be a focal point. Guess I could have fill tooled, but eh. Of course, these highlights would then be, I mean, more accurately in like this level of gray. Just so much void. And I guess not what I meant to do. If this would be dark too, which it would be, then that at least makes that kind of one shape. I'm not sure if that's better or not. I mean, a lot of it depends on how we do the highlights. If we lean enough into the highlights, like maybe it'll be able to smooth things over a little bit. Let's see. A little bit visible in there. There, and then really like kind of bring these loops down. We can sort of imply some other folds. Let's see. I guess what I really ought to do at this point is at the very least clear out everything that I don't actually expect to be in the final like frame of this. We're at the point where it doesn't make sense to keep working on stuff that we don't think is going to be permanent. Let's see. Cool, so shift is still the tool. We want hard, I think. No, we want rough. We want it level. That's not level. Suppose I could use a ruler. There's one other trick I can use. Ah, I pressed the wrong button. There we go. Hey, that's pretty good on terms of being level. So for context, what I was doing there, and I don't even know if it shows up on stream, but you know, with this tool, there's not like anti-aliasing in the line. So it's really hard to see when it's this close over the grid. Here, I'll do it over here, even though this will be a mistake. Ah, fine. It really wants to be over there, huh? But basically, if you really look fine enough, this line is actually made up of a series of smaller, actually horizontal lines, and they sort of stair step up. And if you can line them up in such a way that all the stair steps are level, then you know that it's a level line. Thank you, Minecraft, is all I can say to knowing how to do that. There we go. Honestly, it could probably go even a little higher. But that's at the very least much better. And likewise on this side one, I mean, while we're sorting this out. Well, as I got to line up on the different axis this time. There we go. That's more of a straight line, or a straight edge. Piece feels a little more upright now, don't it? What this means is we can try once again leaning into the black. I'm sure I'm gonna go back and forth. Whoops. Gonna go back and forth on this more, no doubt. I mean, I could do even that one. That gives us a lot of shadow down there. But I'll be honest, having this piece colored in with the dark too, actually showing helps a lot. And knowing that most of this is going to be dark, this actually may not be so bad. That may have been the issue, is that this was light, and so it looked like we had a lot of black next to a huge field of the like super light tone. And so that contrast was the thing throwing my eyes for a loop. So with that in mind, we can actually lean into this a little more now. Yeah, this is feeling better. Like I can now use the other one as the sort of highlight to pick out points. Like we're keeping the line work on this, so I don't have to worry about replicating the line work, but I can give it a little more oomph in certain areas where it like might be expected to have it. Don't know for sure on this bit, but you know, it's interesting if nothing else. The only way to know for sure is to give it a shot. Not a lot lost except for a little time. And feeling like we're doing okay on that. Although we're short on time for this particular stream. Oh well. Trust the process on this one, y'all. Just give me a second. Actually, let me observe this a little better. Alright, so it's more like that. There's like kind of... I'm amazed that this is like a 3D model. The sheer level of detail on it's just phenomenal. Before I overcommit, let's color fill that in and that. We'll clean up the edges last, because that's just some nice fine point detail work that doesn't have to be, or that I'd rather have the bulk of stuff figured out before we spend a lot of time on it, if I can. Color in context. This one feels so dark compared to some other stuff. It feels like a shade here, but it sure don't feel like a shade down here. Whoops. There we go. Wrong slider. And this also means that we can use the black a little more in highlights over here to really make stuff kind of work. Okay, yeah, I'm having more confidence in this now. I still don't think I want to go full dark on this, but we can do like a little bit of texture stuff going with it. Honestly, this bit of fabric right here is a lot like trying to draw an ear. There we go. I'll sort of leave it at that for now. We'll get the highlight over here sorted out. We'll get like, we've obviously got like a little bit going on over here, but we can do more. I'm going to worry honestly less about having these highlights in here. With the dark being a strong contrast, you know, these little pops aren't as important. This is going to make the whole thing seem lighter when we've got this dark next to it. Like the reason I was trying those highlights was sort of the opposite. I was like, okay, I can't use black, but maybe I can make the dark gray look dark by putting the right stuff with it. Which, to be fair, sort of worked. That's roughly what that one's going to do. We can follow our own line work, maybe. We'll see. We'll see if we choose to follow our own line work or not. Kind of like this finer point that it's pulling to. But of course, we definitely need the darks up here. Well, this lower section as a whole is certainly getting darker, but it's also... I don't know. It is working better, and I think it's because enough of it is black that the little black sections don't stand out aggressively anymore. Which, like, I don't know. I love the high contrast pop that we've got up here, and maybe we'll be able to maintain that, but there's something to be said about it also just looking decent, so... Which, don't know why I thought that would work. Not even on the right pen. Looks like we had a little sneaky. We're gonna have to clean all that up though. That said, I also realize, okay, hold on, I need to do a little cleanup just for my own sanity. Because these lines are so busy that they've got to be sorted out a little bit. Pardon. Just making sure that underneath the line work stuff is consistent, like down here. And like this. There we go. That's getting better. Okay. Less eyesore. There we go. That one's also now better. So yeah, I will try to keep this sort of style going across a lot of the rest of the fabric, but we've actually gone longer than expected without taking a break, so I'm going to take just a couple minutes real quick, get some water, stand up, stretch, all that jazz. I highly suggest you do the same, and then we will jump right back into it. See y'all on the flip side. Howdys and salutations again. Sorry about that wait, but we are back at it. Once more and always. See, I'm going to keep working on the fabric. We'll get as long as we can get. And, yeah, honestly, I may go a little over time just to make good headway on the fabric, because there's still so much to clean up on it. We may have to do some next stream. But I want to leave next stream. There's so much stuff that's going to be fun to do, and then there's one thing I'm scared of. Actually, two things I'm scared of. A lot of fun stuff. Scary. Very scary. But we're just going to see. We're going to see. Actually, the fluff, assuming I do it right, shouldn't be the worst. We'll see. We shall indeed see. But that's definitely not a tonight thing. We'll be lucky to get the fabric done tonight. Oi! No stray loins when I pick up the pen, mate. Please. These insane scribblings. I promise there's a logic to it. Okay, there we go. Okay, now I need to zoom in for a second and review what I literally just did. How did we do these borders? We did scratch a scratch, but they're not overly wobbly. They're just unique wobbles that actually follow the contours. I guess that makes sense. In which case, this part right here, I'm going to try to just work from right to left. And I think the lines on this one, when you zoom in, are a little wonky, but yep, see, that's one of them. But I think zoomed at full, they look really good. So we're not going to mess with those. We are going to mess here a little bit, and then I'm going to try to give a little to make this ring distinctive, and then we'll jump on to this pattern. Okay, so looking at this actual thing, really getting in here, there's not a lot to go off of. And that's fine. What it actually tells me is I probably got these all a little too bold. Once again, that was sort of a trying to counteract the the lack of dark going on. I needed to make sure that this wasn't over the top. But now I think it's pretty reasonable to say that it's not. That to have, you know, the darkness in here. I mean, again, we'll see. I may look at it again tomorrow and be like, what was I thinking? Just like I did today. But hopefully I'll have a better plan if I do that. These jags are too small. I need slightly more sweeping bizarreness until we get really into the little niches. Really get funky as we go down. There we go. That looks better, considerably, I'd say. Okay, is that supposed to be fluff or not? Doesn't matter, it's definitely going to get covered in fluff. It's not supposed to be, though. So either way, the light color works fine for it. No harm there. Ah, this ring. It really is black, just full stop. And it, like, kind of makes the fabric next to it need to be a little more gray, just for contrast. Although, again, like, making people see this ring, not my priority. It literally just isn't my goal. Just like in Elden Ring, the devs getting you to actually see the whole game, clearly not their goal. Or in any of their games, they hide and they have a long history of hiding entire stinking zones. Alright, hold on. Before I just abruptly toss this, we might be able to just smooth it and get the effect that we're looking for. Not with this, though. We're going to 4. I do think we probably need overall less than we've got going in here. So I'm going to shave all of this down by a fair bit. I'll try to get some of these stray speckles because I don't want accidental gradients if I can help it. I am okay with a few stray spots. As long as they're like the more sizable spots that are clearly supposed to be there and not just accidental gradients. And once again, this one mostly going to vanish. Just be like a little edge highlight over there with a slight blip. Likewise, as much as this one looks like a really cool long dragon with like its wing here, bumped up head over here, and tail just going. A little cloud dragons sleeping away in there. It's too much. Sorry, cloud dragon. I think most of cloud dragon needs to go. Sorry, cloud dragon. Then we'll merge on this other side. But I'm gonna go mostly no contrast down here. Well, this part once again might still get cropped out. We'll see. No guarantees on that at this point though, just because getting to the point where the framing actually looks pretty decent on the overall. I may not want to crop it, but I do want to clean that up a little bit. Clean up the overreach there. I know there was a little. Nope, it wasn't here. It was down here. Technically, I can go ahead and put back some of this counter contrast that was going on, although I don't know that we need it. Nothing crazy there, and we'll once again do a little smoothing on some of this stuff, just like one round. I'm okay with some bumps and such, but broadly speaking, it ought to be fairly smooth. How's that looking? Good up here, still too big of pieces down here. Okay, well, continue to clean it up then. I want to color this in while I see it. I got to stop jumping around like that though. We'll get to this section. Step one. I guess technically if I was going from right to left, I would pause and do this stuff, but we've got a little cleanup to do here, and I might as well just continue on this thread, so to speak. And make that much more faint. That should help it stay, yeah. You can cut into that a little bit. Feels more like it. You can have like a little bit of bulk to it, but it just needs to be really kind of scraggly bulk. Not like loose pen stroke scraggly, or like what we'd been doing, but like this kind of rounded scraggle. Scraggle rock. I don't know if anyone remembers stinking the Fraggles. I barely remember them. Honestly, you know what I remember about them the most? I remember back in the days of DVD and VHS tapes, my dad ran across them and was like, "Oh, I remember these from my childhood. We should get them." And then he watched them with me once and he was like, "I remembered these being way less terrible than they were," and he never wanted to watch them again. And I feel bad. I'm sure they're lovely. I only really watched them twice. Once then, and then like one other time a little later. But like, I don't know, they were fun. They were Muppety types. I got that one. Got like a little bit on this one, and then we've got the stuff going on here. That like honestly probably needs to continue up a little bit and like run into the black. Stuff going on there. This up a little bit. Try to play nice with the existing lines if I can. This contrast here is going to be complicated. I realize once again I'm on a slight tangent, but this one is technically in the stated order. And in any case, I can clean this part up a little bit. There we go. Now that kind of looks like it's actually doing the thing it ought to be doing and catching the light in the way that would make sense. Cool. Sort of, at least. Let's just keep on plugging. We'll kind of put some gaps in. I guess if I want this to reach out without still looking like too much of a block, I gotta kind of have it reach at an angle so that there's not like a big old chunk of light. There's just like a bit of it. Sort of have it creep out like that. That works better. It's a little bit of this just like white noisy type nonsense. Kind of follow the contours a little bit. Not 100% satisfied with that, but it's, you know, not terrible. Now to look at this bit up here. Because this part, honestly, even just this flat edge, kind of just works. I could add, like, you know, whatever we wanted. But given the way that the fabric over here is flowing, pretty believable all in all. We'll keep up with that. Honestly, I think over-angling it there is a mistake solely because it looked like it was just like one smooth arc with this, which I don't necessarily want. Like, not that it'd be the end of the world, it's just not quite the look that I'm aiming for. I think it would make that look too much like one clean piece, which it, I mean, technically sort of is, but mostly isn't. There, that gives that like a little bit of texture. And we can clean up some of this stuff over here. But like, I am gonna say, like, these a lot less fuzzy than the like the dust and particulate and whatever's going on over there. Even where we've got just like a little patch being kind of highlighted up here. Likewise with these, I do like the texture that we've gotten. I'm just gonna smooth the whole mess out a little bit. And make it all just a little bit bolder. If that's better. We're gonna have to go for bigger shapes on that one, which is fine. Wonder if I could get a similar sort of. Imply some wrinkles and folds in that little bit. Yeah, it's not bad. Need to work on my consistency on how I'm doing these. These, truthfully, ought to be like way bolder now that we've got like the context of everything else being generally darker. I'm gonna lean into that a little more. And this I'm probably going to want to clean up on the next one. I sort of see that coming. Because it feels too pointed and too sharp. Everything over there feels too... Oh, it's because I'm not actually thinking about my ref and I'm drawing it basically inverse of what it ought to be. Okay, let's fresh start this section. We'll come back to up here, and I'm sure we'll come back to this bit just because it's kind of... honestly, overall, it's not that distracting, but it's a little distracting for the relative level of detail. Like this one, I want to draw your eye because that's kind of the glow point and it's showing the light. This one, I don't necessarily, so it's like kind of got too much going on, but that's fine. But this section, we just need to do a little bit of fresh start, and I think we can get something real nice. In here, clear that out. Then, of course, okay. Now, if we look at our actual references, like we should be doing, shadow is filling the deep U-shaped chasms, not the pointed tops. And in any case, these wrinkles really aren't all that pointed. So it's really ought to be more of a like U-shaped shading that we're getting in here. That makes the top of these sort of pop more. Again, like the reason we'd steer clear of this is I didn't want to just swamp everything in black, but since we're kind of at that point now, I think that we're kind of in the clear. We'll see. We'll see if we zoom out and this just looks like hot garbage, we'll know like, whoops. That said, I still don't want perfectly smooth sides. I want broadly smooth sides. We want the, this is following the tension, so it's not going to have a ton of wrinkles, but it might have some. I can give that one a little more space to work. Doodle. We'll pop that all in there. Have another go at filling that with the pen. Yep. Let's see if that's just too much contrast in one place or not. Let's maybe tone down the eraser a little bit when we clean up these edges. Oopsie, nope, not that. Okay, and save. Now let's see what we're looking at now, and if we need to break it up a little bit. Yeah, it's probably too much of a draw, but I think it overall is looking better. I think that the composition probably looked better when it was all just one matte gray section down there, but we'll have to see, once we get the lights and everything going on up here, and actually have our contrast in, we'll have to judge based on that. Yeah. This area especially is probably still being a little too heavy-handed on the dark. Even though it is a dark section, it's like the less dark section generally. In fact, I'm even seeing now that the U shape, as these sort of taper out, the U kind of fades on these. Okay. Kind of that big one, and then this one really isn't all that bold. Truthfully, it's pretty small. this one. Oh, actually, it's this one that kind of goes all the way. This one U-shape tapers out as it sort of gets wider. We'll let it taper wide, but then just kind of wimp out. And no shame in that. Oh, good enough. And we'll come back in here. We'll get like a little more going. We'll continue this one out further. We'll even hint that it's starting to fade. That kind of work as the contour of the fabric, or it really feels like it ought to be like more over there and less on this side. That also doesn't feel right. May have to look more at that section tomorrow. This one, weirdly, in its simplicity, just kind of looks decent, and I may leave it alone. I'll clean up that one edge, and then I'm just going to leave it be. I can tell I'm tiring it out and probably ought to wrap soon. But we did also technically give at least one more once over to all the fabric. I'm not worried about this bit up here. Personally, I'm just not worried about it. If it ends up mattering, it's going to be because of the fluff interfering with it, and we'll just deal with that as it happens. Maybe do the neck first next time, and then move on to the fluff. That way we have sort of the light tones to compare it against. We'll see. But whatever the decision may end up being, we will be picking it up tomorrow, and I look forward to seeing y'all then. So with that, I shall bid thee farewell. Have a good one.